Hey everyone, today we are going to be doing top k frequent element in C#. So let's read the problem. It goes, given an integer array nums and an integer k, return k most frequent element. You may return the answer in any order. So what this is basically asking us to do is to return an array with the most frequent elements given an array of numbers and a k value. So in this example, we were given this array and k equal to 2. So we're supposed to return the top two frequent elements, which is 1 and 2. Okay, so how are we going to do that? So we're going to use a bucket sorting algorithm and hash maps. So if you look at this array, when you look at this array, you'll notice that it has a fixed size. So this array has a size of 2, 4, 6. It has a size of 6. So it has a fixed size of 6. What this means is that any one number cannot repeat more than 6 times because the array has a fixed size of 6. So that means that we can create a new array, with a size of 7, which we can use as a frequency counter. So that's going to look something like this. So 1 repeats 3 times, okay, and 2 repeats twice, so it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So we could create a new array. And then what we can do with this array is use its indices as the frequency counter, because remember, we can't have more than the size of the array in duplicate. And what we'll do is take each number and basically create an array of values. So what that would look like is, let's look at 0. So no number, so 0 is going to be empty. And then 1, we will look for a number that repeats only 1 time, and that's going to be 3, and we will put 3 in this array. And then we'll go to the second index and look for a number that, well, numbers that repeat twice, so that's 2. So 2 repeats 2 times, so it's going to be 2. And then we'll look for numbers that repeat 3 times, so that's 1. And then that's it. These are going to be empty. And then we are going to create a new array to basically store the top k frequent elements with a size of k. So we will have this array. It's going to be empty at first, but it will have a size of k. So k is 2 in our case. And then we are going to loop through this frequency array from the back to the front. And then I guess in this case we are going to start at 3 because 3 has values, and we would have basically skipped all of these, and we would start at 3 and put 1 here, and then we would go to 2 and put 2 here. So now this array is full, and then we would return it. So that's how you solve top k frequent elements. Okay, so let's do that in Leetcode. Okay, so first we are going to need a hash map to store the repeating numbers. So int, I'll call this count because we're counting how often each number repeats. So this is a new dictionary. Int. And then we are going to need the array, the frequency array. So it's going to be an array of lists of type integer. So I'll call this freq, for short for frequency, and it's a new list, and and this has a size of nums.length plus 1 because we want to include the index of the actual size of the array. What I mean by that is, for example, let's look at this. Nums has a size of 6, but if we just put in nums.length here, then our index is going to end at 5, but we need index 6 because the most elements nums can have is 6. So that's what I mean. That's why we put this plus 1 here. And then we are going to need to fill this array up with empty lists so that we don't get errors when we try to perform operations on it. So I'm just gonna have a for loop, and we are going to populate the frequency array with empty lists. So it's pretty straightforward. New list, and that's it. Okay, so now we need to loop through the nums array for each int num in nums, and we are going to check if our hash map contains this current number as a key. So if count dot contains key num, and if it does, we are going to increment its value by 1. So count num plus plus. And if it does not, we are going to add it into the hash map num 1. So with a count of 1, and then if we find it again, we'll just increment the 1. Okay, so next we want to put each number in its, I guess, corresponding frequency. So we're basically going to loop through our hash map. So for each var pair in count, so we're getting the key and value. And what we're gonna do with that, we're going to say frequency, and we're going to use the pair dot value, because remember the value stores the count, and the maximum value is going to be 6, and our frequency has an int. Well, it's not going to be 6, it's going to be the size of the nums array. So that's why we're using the count as the index, and then we can just add so this is an operation on the list, so we're going to add the pair dot key, because in our hash map we're storing the numbers in this array as the keys and their counts as the values, basically. So we're adding that to the list. Okay, so once we're done doing this, we are now going to loop through this array of lists from the back. So for int j equal to frequency dot length minus 1, and then while j is greater than 0, j plus plus. Okay, so now we're gonna loop through each item in the list at the current what do you call this, at the current index. For int, I will call this item in frequency at j, and I forgot to create the array that we are going to return, so I'll just call this result. So int result equal to new int, and it's gonna have a size of k, and I'll call this int length. So it's currently empty, so we'll say 0, and we're going to use this to populate this array. So we'll say res add length is equal to item, and then length plus plus, and then we'll check if length is equal to k, and if it is, we will return the result. And then outside of this, we will also return the result. Okay, yeah, I think that is the solution. So let's go over this. So first, we have our dictionary to count our numbers, and we have our frequency array, and then we populate our frequency array with empty lists, and then we loop through each number in our array, and we check if our counter hash map contains the key, and if it does, we increment the count. If it does not, we add it to the counter and we give it a count of 1, and then we loop through each value in our hash map, and then we add the key to the frequency array using its value as the index. So frequency pair dot value, so whatever the count of this current pair is going to be its index, and then we're going to add it to the end of our list, because remember, frequency stores lists, so we're just adding it to the end of our list. And then we have our result array with a size of k, because we're looking for the top k frequent element, and then it starts with 0 items, so we give it a length of 0, and then we loop through the frequency array from the back, and then we loop through each item in the list, and we add them to the result array as long as k is not equal to the length, and then we return the array. Yeah, this looks correct. Let's run it and see if it works. Okay, it says system index was out of bounds. Let me see where I made a mistake. Okay, so int I equal to 0 while I... Okay, yeah, I see my mistake. This should have been j minus minus, because we're going backwards and not forward. Okay, let's try that. Perfect. And I'm going to submit this, see if it actually passes all the cases. And yeah, this is how you solve top k frequent element in C#. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video.